I don't think all emotional responses need to be managed. Even the quote unquote bad emotions, the negative ones like anger, anxiety, sadness, those serve a function when they're experienced in the right proportions, not too intense, not too long. But of course, we regularly do experience those kinds of emotions too intensely and for too long. And when you look at what the consequences of that are, to me, it makes it really clear why it's so unbelievably important for us to understand how to manage them. It's almost um, criminal is maybe the wrong word, but the fact that we don't teach people how to do this in schools, I think, is a huge problem.
Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Hi there. Are you hooked on stress, stuck in your head, or overwhelmed by your emotions? Well, you're not alone and you're not powerless. Psychologist and author Dr. Ethan Kross wants to help you manage your emotions before they manage you. From reframing your inner voice to reshaping your environment, Ethan shares science-backed strategies to feel more in control no matter what life throws you. We talk about all of that and his new book called Shift, Managing Your Emotions So They Don't Manage You. I hope you enjoy the conversation. This podcast is brought to you by TELUS Smart Home Security. Secure, simplify, and easily monitor your home from anywhere using the Smart Home Security app. Visit TELUS.com/smarthome-security to learn more about Canada's most trusted security provider. Hi, Ethan. It's so good to see you.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
So your brand new book is called Shift, Managing Your Emotions So They Don't Manage You. This seems like the perfect book at the perfect time. I feel like there's a lot of emotions right now, all over the world, really.
There are a lot of emotions right now. Don't we all need some help managing them? It's interesting you say that because on the one hand, it sure feels like we're living through some turbulent times right now. But on the other hand, as I mentioned in the book, we've been living through turbulence for as long as we've been roaming this planet. One of the little factoids that really I always think about that I stumbled on when I was researching the book is if you turn back the clock 8 to 10,000 years, we invented the first surgical, what is widely believed to be the first surgical technique. It's a technique. Let me ask, do you have any idea what that technique was?
No
Okay,
idea.
so here's what it involved doing: carving holes in people's skulls. So it's called trepanation. And one of the reasons why it was believed to be used was to help people deal with problematic emotional experiences, right? And if you think about it, maybe 8 to 10,000 years ago, we didn't have brain imaging technology to tell us what was going on in our brains when we're experiencing emotion. So our theories were different. Maybe it was some funky spirit or a demon in there that was leading you to stay in bed the whole time and or not be fun to be around. And so let's let the demon out. And so we've been dealing with this stuff for a while. And what fills me with hope is that we still have turbulence, but I'm not advocating any kind of trepanation, nor should anyone else. Yes.
No, I think we're better. We're a little bit better at things now too, managing them or trying to at least learning how. Because I should mention that this topic. This is what you do, right? You're a psychologist. This is your second book. But what do you call your day job? What's your day job?
My day job is I'm a scientist. So when I was in college, I'll give you the very short 60-second origin story. Um, Went to college, took my first psychology class, and halfway through the semester, came across this topic of introspection. Hey, we have the ability to use our mind to solve problems. This is what allows us to be so incredibly successful, right? As a species, this is how we build spaceships that build up, they blast us into outer space. But this very same tool that we possess, our ability to turn our attention inward and reflect on our circumstances, it's also the source of a massive human suffering. It leads us to get anxious and sad and be filled with envy that lasts a long time. And so that sparked a real fire within me to figure out how to use the tools of science to understand why people sometimes let their emotions sometimes getting the better of them. And when they do, what can we do to help them feel better? And so I went to graduate school to figure out how to use science to answer those questions. Came to the University of Michigan, founded a lab here called the Michigan Emotion Self Control Lab. That's my day job. I do research on these questions. I teach about it to people within the university and beyond. And increasingly, I try to share this information with folks outside of the university because I think a lot of people are really hungry to learn about how to become um, better managers of their own self, if you will.
Yeah, I like that. Better managers. So how do you, if someone says to you, well, why do we need to manage our emotions? Like what happens if we don't? What does it look like if you don't manage your emotions?
If you don't manage your emotions well, and what I mean by that, let me back up actually. It's just like lay some groundwork. Um, I don't think all emotional responses need to be managed. Even the quote unquote bad emotions, the negative ones like anger, anxiety, sadness, those serve a function when they're experienced in the right proportions, not too intense, not too long. But of course, we regularly do experience those kinds of emotions too intensely and for too long. And when you look at what the consequences of that are, to me, it makes it really clear why it's so unbelievably important for us to understand how to manage them. It's almost criminal is maybe the wrong word, but the fact that we don't teach people how to do this in schools, I think, is a huge problem. So, what happens when our emotions take over and we're no longer in control? Make it really hard for us to think and perform optimally. Have you ever tried to read a few pages in a book while you were consumed with an emotion, maybe ruminating about it, and under oath you would swear to a judge that you've read the information, but you don't remember anything by the time you get to the end? Like that's a perfect indicator, right? Our emotions consume our attention. They can make it hard to focus. They can sabotage our ability to perform under the spotlight. When our emotions take over, they can create friction in our relationships with other people. We talk too much about our emotions in ways that push people away. We take our emotions out on other people. We displace our frustration. Relationships are part of what make life really worth living, and our emotions can compromise those relationships. And then there's our health and well-being. I don't think I have to spend too much time convincing folks that it doesn't feel good to be anxious or sad or angry all the time. It feels awful. If that weren't enough, we now also know that when our emotions are chronically activated negative emotions, that can exert a wear and tear on our bodies that is physically damaging. Predicts things like problems of cardiovascular disease, inflammation, even certain forms of cancer. So let me just stop there. Thinking and performance, relationships, health and well-being, like what more is there than those three things in life? And when our emotions take over, they seep their tentacles around all of those areas of life that we care so much about. So I think it is one of the big problems we face as a species to regulate our emotions, to learn how to do it.
You just mentioned in there how we're not taught, like when are we taught to manage our emotions? And I know you read about how, physical fitness, right? We go when from when we start school, we have PE class, we learn to be fit, we take little uh fitness tests all through school, right? Learning, how many sit-ups can you do and why is it important to do this and strength and our strong bodies. Do we do that? We don't do that for like how do we as kids learn to manage our emotions, or do we, or is it trial and error?
Well, it's totally unregulated in the sense that one source of knowledge about our how to manage our emotions comes from our parents. Many of our parents, of course, weren't taught this. Some of our parents don't think it's important due to cultural shifts, right? Like for a long time, emotions were just considered noise, just push them aside. So some parents teach their kids some things. Schools, you learn some lessons some of the time. It's just haphazard though. And then we end up stumbling on solutions that sometimes work, sometimes don't. And we find ourselves just kind of leaving it up to chance, if you will, whether we learn how to be really good emotion regulators. And what's astounding to me, I love the comparison to physical fitness that you brought up. If no one taught me how to do a push up or an oblique rotation. Like I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have learned how to do that on my own. Like a burpee. Like when would I have ever learned how to do a burpee, right? And yet these are exercises that are very easy to use, easy to do, that can make a huge difference in our health. I've actually dug into the physical fitness history, at least in the States. Physical fitness started to become the norm in schools in 1820, right? So over 200 years of a recognition that teaching kids, and it's not just kids, it extends all the way through throughout our lives, actually, from, in college, there's intramural sports, there are gym memberships after that. For folks out in the workplace, many organizations have gyms in their buildings. This is just part of how we work. We recognize that managing our physical bodies is of paramount importance, so much so that we're going to take a precious 45 minutes to an hour out of the day for our kids and teach them how to do this. When I ask people from all walks of life how important it is to know how to manage your emotions, I have everyone from CEOs to professional athletes to stay-at-home parents and everyone in between telling me that that's all that really matters on a day-to-day basis. And yet we don't teach people about it in a systematic way. That's a big question mark for me, why that is.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like we assume that it's our instincts will teach us how to manage emotions, but when I hear the word emotion or emotional, I can't help but hear someone say, "You're so emotional. Why do you get so emotional about things?" Like it's a negative thing, right? If I show you my emotion, like if I'm upset with you or if I'm sad because you did something, but I share that, like somebody, especially as a woman, you do hear it often where people say, "You're so emotional."
Hey, sometimes I hear it as a male too in my household. My kids are, stop being so emotional, Dad. You're so dramatic. Um, um, and I think that's an unfortunate instance in which we are pairing, you know, uh, just a state of being, which is we all have emotions, we all experience them. According to one study, by the way, about 90% of the time that we're awake, we're feeling something. So we're an emotional species, right? But we link being emotional with exaggerated response. On the flip side, though, I'll point out some of the most uncomfortable dinners and meetings I have are with people who are completely stoic and refuse to show any emotion. I find that I actually love to be around folks who express their emotions and are have a warmth to them. Now, taken to the other extreme, if you're consumed with a negative emotion and you just won't stop talking about it, that creates real friction in relationships. And my sense is that that's where that term of being emotional really is. It's connected with that context.
Mm. So how do we learn? Well, I guess how do we know? How do we know if we need to? Like, I guess the question is, we probably all would do better in life if we could manage our emotions. And I may think, "Oh, I don't need to manage my emotions," but I probably do. Like most people probably need to know this skill.
Yes. I would argue everyone needs to learn this skill. And there's no harm in learning it. So, but I think where you were going with the question was, how do you know if you need to manage your emotions?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm curious about that. Like if someone's listening right now and they're like, "Well, yeah, I don't know. Am I in trouble with my emotions? Is it physically bothering me?"
And here's a simple way of answering that question. So, if you want to go back to, technical descriptors of what I do, you asked me about my day job before as a professor. I study what we call self-regulation or emotion regulation. And the formal definition of that is a person's ability to align their thoughts, feelings, and or behaviors with their goals. That means if when do I need to regulate? When do I need to manage myself? Well, it's when I'm feeling a way that is out of sync with the way I want to feel. Sometimes, believe it or not, I want to feel angry actually. It's useful for me to feel angry because it motivates me to take action, to intervene. Sometimes a little bit of anxiety actually helps me too. Before a big presentation, I need a little anxiety to cue me to prepare. But at other times, I don't want the anxiety. Most of the time, I don't want to feel big anxiety. It's not particularly a pleasant state. I don't want to be distracted by thinking about worst case scenarios when I'm trying to give feedback to my students about their presentations. I don't want to be distracted with thoughts that might lead me to feel bad about myself, self-critique when I'm out to dinner with my daughters and trying to be present and just learn about their days and contribute to their lives. So it's really about your goals and are the ways that you are feeling in sync with how you want to feel or out of sync? If how you're feeling is out of sync with the way you want to be, let's go to the toolbox and let's get in there to push those emotions around to put you back on the path that you want to be. That is that is, I think, the opportunity that exists. And in terms of how do you equip people to do that, there are really two steps. It's simple. Number one, you've got to actually believe that you can manage your emotions. It's critically important because if you don't think that there's anything you can do to manage your emotions, they don't manage you, the likelihood of you taking any steps to manage your emotions is very small, right? If you don't think there's anything you can do to get physically stronger, why on earth would you take the, at times, difficult steps to do the exercises to meet that goal? You wouldn't. So you've got to believe it's possible. And I'm telling you, it is possible. And that's not my opinion. That is grounded in fact. And then you've got to learn what are the different tools that are out there. If we stick with physical fitness, you don't just say, I'm going to lose weight and get really strong and it magically happens. You go to the gym and you get introduced to the different pieces of equipment and you get taught how to use that equipment, right? Some of that equipment looks really complicated, but if you have an instructor who is skilled, they can show you how to use it pretty easily. And then once you learn, you start practicing. You start saying, well, do I like doing this thing? Actually, Tamara, I don't like doing squats. I don't like doing burpees. They just don't fill my life with joy.
Do not like burpees.
Burpees are terrible. Why would anyone like them? No offense to the burpee, aficionados here, but I don't do them. I do other stuff, right? So I have learned how to curate the set of tools that work for me, and that's what we all need to learn how to do.
And that's what you mean, in the book, there is no one size fits all. And that's what I like about, right? Because we are all different. So what works for me might not work for you. Or it is so good to compare it to the burpees and the squats and that, because that you can grasp what that looks like and then apply it to your feelings and emotions and how you respond to things or what you carry inside of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's in some ways, if you think about it, and I do think about this a lot because I get asked a lot, Dr. Kross, what is the one thing people should do right now to maintain their calm? Like, I so wish I could answer that question. It would be so great if we all could just, you got a headache, you take a Tylenol. Like, it's just not the way our emotions work. But if you step back for a second and just think about how utterly nuanced each of us is when it comes to our emotions. I mean, my wife, I'm closer to my wife and daughters than I am any other human beings on this planet. I think I know them inside out, but their emotional lives are like so different from mine. Even though we share so many similarities and how we think about the world, where we come from, it's still, we're so different. We're so unique. So, given that uniqueness, why would we expect the same tool to work for all of us? It, that's just not the way it works.
Yeah, it can't. There's just no way. And it's so true. I have 3 kids and a husband. It's the same thing.
Or question marks sometimes. Go figure.
Big question marks, especially teenagers.
Oh my goodness. How old are yours?
14, 16, and 17.
Oh my goodness. You've got a triple threat. I have a 15 and 11-year-old and the 15, I mean it's wild,
It is wild. It is so wild. I find myself saying, are you mad at me right now? No. Why? And it's like, oh, okay, sorry, I just didn't know. And then I feel like she is mad at me because I asked if she was mad at me. And I'm just like, so it's interesting because you are constantly learning how to manage how you're feeling and that's what I love about, well, your book and this conversation is that I've never thought about it like I do about my physical self. So if I'm trying to lift something in the garage to move it and I can't, I can ask for help or I can, try to get stronger or I can whatever. But I've never compared that to how I'm feeling emotionally.
Well, I'm gonna have to start paying you royalties now because I love that example about lifting something in a garage when you can't. It really speaks to something that I think is so important, which is we can give people tools, right? They're all listed in the back of my book. You can find them online as well. So, like, we can show you how to use all these tools. And these tools are going to work for you in a lot of situations. You're going to get stronger if you practice them. You're going to get better at managing your emotions. I hope you're going to be happier and more productive as well. Nonetheless, it is very likely that you are still going to encounter situations that are emotionally trying that you cannot manage on your own. Just as moving the refrigerator in the garage is not a great idea. It's funny. I have not funny, but a good friend of mine is a former Navy SEAL. This is someone who can do most things when it comes to physical exertion on his own. Yet he actually tried to move a refrigerator in his garage and he tore his bicep. He should have asked for help. He couldn't do it on his own. The same is true for our emotional lives. So in my book, I talk about tools you can use on your own. There are lots of them, changing your perspective and your attention and activating your senses in different ways. But then another set of tools involves other people. And I don't think we avail ourselves of that set of tools as much as we probably should. And so one of the things I try to do in the book is help people figure out, number one, who are the people in your life who are equipped to help you manage your emotions? It's not everyone. Sometimes the people that we're closest to make things worse rather than better. So there's a way to find the right people. And then the flip side to that is I offer people tips on how they themselves can become better advisors, emotional advisors to others, so that when other people come to you, you know what to do to help them manage their emotions.
Mm, yes. Okay, I want to ask you more about that. But first, I just want to mention that we like to thank our guests for being here by asking them to choose a Canadian nonprofit. And you chose the Canadian Cancer Society. They do great work. And we are going to give them a donation in your name as a thank you for you being here. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, and thank you for doing that. It's wonderful.
So what you just said, there's a couple things here. You just said, you know, who can you go to? And again, you can go back to the refrigerator in the garage, right? Like I have to move the refrigerator. Who am I going to ask to help me? Am I going to ask my 14-year-old? No. Am I going to ask my, my burly neighbor who I know also has a dolly who could, yes. And so I would think it's the same when it comes to.
Not after they hear you call them a burly neighbor. You're gonna have to find a new one.
You're right. Exactly. Burly. I meant that as a compliment, I think. But it's like it's so interesting because it is the same when you're feeling emotional about something. I know who I can call about certain things. I also know that for some things I need professional help. And so I guess there's a lot of that too, right? It's like when you keep everything bottled in, you have no way of thriving and being healthy, emotionally healthy. Um, but if you can find your way to use the tools that you describe in your book, and I mean, and here's the other thing we need to mention again. It's the research shows. this this is it, right? You're not making this up. You're not
I'm a scientist. Everything I talk about in the book is grounded in science, references in the back. That's who I am. So
So, and that's why I think it's so great because it does work, but it's a muscle just like our biceps are, and we have to work at it, and eventually it doesn't become work because becomes natural. I I love that. So how has social media changed how we manage our emotions? Because I'm thinking there's so many apps, right? You can meditate or do this or listen to a positive this or i- is it making us easier for us to manage our emotions, social media?
well, I don't think it's making it easier for sure. But here's the thing. In the same way that we said that there are no one size fits all solutions that explain how we manage our emotions. I think the same is true when it comes to social media and our emotional lives in the following sense. We like to talk, in general, human beings, we like to make things as simple as possible. I'm fond of a quote that I believe is attributed to Einstein, who said, "We should make things as simple as possible, but no simpler." And I think we have violated that second corollary in how we talk about social media because we tend to say, oh, it's terrible, it's bringing out the end of civilization, or it's a wonderful thing. In fact, it's a technology, and technologies can be good or bad for us depending on how we use it. A lot of people are triggered emotionally from social media in ways that they have not been triggered before. They log into Instagram and scroll their feeds and are bombarded with images about how amazing other people's lives are. They feel bad. They compare themselves. They experience envy. Twitter can be a place where when people are frustrated, they just rant on Twitter, their frustrations, they broadcast them to others. And that can have really negative effects on people's emotional lives as well. On the flip side, we can use our social media to get support in ways that are unprecedented. I remember back when the war with the Ukraine started, the Ukrainians were getting support via social media. People were sending them money, and it was this beautiful thing. I mean, I've never been told happy birthday as many times as I do on social media. Social media is sometimes before bed each night, I like to turn my brain off. My brain's on the whole day. I'm reading things, I'm talking. I want to just go into like rest and restore mode. You know how I do that? I watch these ridiculously juvenile, funny videos on Instagram. Like my wife looks at me, "What are you laughing about?" She takes a look and she rolls her eyes. But I'll experience joy from that, and then I'll send those videos to my college friends, and they'll tear emojis come back, and it's a social experience. This is adding vitality to my life. So, is social media good or bad? It depends. And what I like to tell people is I think the task for all of us is to be more agentic with how we use social media. Don't let the algorithm push you around so that it's taking hold of you. But you think about what are the ways of purposefully using this technology and these different apps to make them contribute to your life and your goals rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. It's so true. I mean, Ethan, we could talk for hours about this, but because I want to, this is all in the book though. There's so many things that I want to talk to you about the internal shifters that we have. And but we're running out of time. And also your book is one of those books. I mean, my teens could read this book. It's a great book. It's not like it's for everybody.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that.
It really is. It's like sometimes, now I read books and I'm like, I would have never considered sharing them with my kids, but this is one you can easily share with your teen because you're learning something that is scientific and true. And I mean, chapter 3, come on, what a 1980s power ballad taught me about emotion.
Don't stop believing. You could do it.
Right? I love it. Ethan, you're so much fun to talk to. I love it so much. The book is called Shift, Managing Your Emotions So They Don't Manage You. It's available wherever you find your favorite books. You can find Ethan online at Ethan Kross, that's with a K, KROSS.com. So ethankross.com. And he's also on Instagram. You can send all the funny memes there at Ethan Kross. Thank you so, so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. It was such a delight to chat.
Thanks for listening to another episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Be sure to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for another conversation. You can also check out our website, telus.com/podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TELUS Talks.